Hi everybody, this is Dr. Michael Shearer. In this training video, we're going to be taking you through the journey of how we utilize the 3Shape dental system software to go ahead and generate a locator fixed prosthesis. And this workflow is going to be pretty fundamental. We're going to go ahead and demonstrate this workflow using an aligned scan of an intraoral scan of the patient's locator abutments plus the scan bodies merged to a reference denture scan of a scan of the patient's either immediate dentures, temporary dentures, overdenture, or a wax up. This will allow us to go ahead and have the vertical, the centric, and everything, and be able to design on the actual scan of the scan bodies. If you're unsure of how to do that, make sure you check out some of the other videos that I have available on how to go ahead and do that exact procedure. Now, we're going to go ahead and frame this up utilizing the 3Shape removables module within the dental system software. The current version I'm going to be using here today is Dental System 2022. However, this is applicable to earlier versions of Dental System, and also as later versions come out, you can always apply this to later versions as well. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Opening up our computer, we can go ahead and navigate directly to our Dental Manager for our Dental System software. This is the traditional laboratory view for the Dental System software that allows us to go ahead and work like a dental laboratory. Your view may look different than this. If it does look different from this, no worries. Reach out to your 3Shape reseller. They can go ahead and get you this access if you have access to the Dental System software. This is not applicable to studio software. This is only applicable to the Dental Systems and Dental Manager application and workflow. And what we've got in front of us here is we've got our 3Shape align scans that we did in a subsequent other video, where we aligned the scans of the patient's jaws, meaning the edentulous scan of the intraoral scan bodies. We've now aligned it to the reference denture scan, which is also aligned to the patient's opposing arch. So the upper will be the antagonist. This will be the wax rim, so meaning the lower arch will be the wax rim, and then this will be our jaw scan in the this particular workflow. There are other ways of doing this, designing workflows. You can scan off of a model, you can scan off of a variety of other things. However, this particular application is utilizing the reference denture as a guide. So closing out of that, we're going to go ahead and come over to our Dental Manager, where we're going to go ahead and create a new case file for our patient. So starting out by clicking on this button here at the top where it says New, I'm going to click this button, and this will open up the work order function of the 3Shape software. I'm going to go ahead and give this patient a name. So you give your patient's name, whatever, John Smith, their own name. But in this particular case, we're going to use Zest Education, 3Shape Basic Design for Video, just so then that way I know in my database at a later time. Now we have to also ask ourselves, oh my gosh, how am I going to go ahead and input this data? I've entered the name, who I am, my laboratory, and I'm going to start filling out some of this other data. When we're working in the 3Shape software, it's also important for us to go ahead and know not just the little things of like, I need to make a locator or locator fixed prosthesis, but I actually need to tell the software what teeth I'm going to be working on. Imagine you've got a work order or a piece of paper right in front of us that's going to tell us exactly what we need to do. So I need to count 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, all the way over here to tooth number 31. So second molar to second molar. And I'm going to verify that because looking underneath my prosthesis, I have my locator abutment here and my locator abutment here. And knowing what I know about locator fixed, I can get a pretty good AP spread between this front and back implant. So then therefore, I know I'll be able to give this patient a second molar on this side. And then over in here, here's my implant. Yep, I feel pretty comfortable about getting a patient a second molar on both sides. If my implants were further forward, I would maybe need to stop on just the first molar. But in this particular application, I'll be able to go ahead and give this patient this exact set of teeth, but without the flanges. So by knowing that, I can come back to my 3Shape software and left click on tooth number 18, hold the Shift key on my keyboard, and click on over to tooth number 31. By doing so, I'm going to designate to the software that I'm going to be giving the patient 18 through 31. The first thing you want to do is click on gingiva when doing this workflow. We don't want to click on anatomy first, we click on gingiva. And then we tell the software what we're going to do to it. So right in here, I'm going to click this dentures gingiva button right here, hover above the plus icon, come up to material, and then tell the software what material I'm going to use. Now I have a library in here for my 3D printers. In this particular application, I'm going to use my Denture 3D Plus, or you can go ahead and use Ivoclar, Ivotion, or whatever material you want. If you're unsure of what to use, you can always go ahead and use model material as your default. But in this particular application, I'm going to use Denture 3D Plus, choose my shade, so opaque pink. And then in this particular example, you can leave it as raw STL print, or I can choose NextDent Manufacturing. I'm going to choose NextDent Manufacturing just because I'm going to go ahead and 3D print my locator fixed prosthesis in that material. Alternatively, the raw STL file print, which will just give you your raw STL files, which will also definitely work. Next step is I left click on anatomy and tell the software I'm going to do a denture from 18 to 31. Now this time I have to make all of these teeth. So meaning 4 posterior teeth on each side and then 6 here in the front. So I have a total of 14 teeth. Hover above my little plus icon because it automatically defaults to artificial tooth, which is this button right here. If it doesn't, you can click it. Hover above the plus, come up to the top, and I'm going to choose my NextDent crown material, which is the CBMFH. And I'll choose the bleach resin. Now I could choose raw STL print, but since I chose NextDent Manufacturing for down here, I'm going to choose NextDent Manufacturing right here as well. Now also, I want to go ahead and bridge these teeth together because I want to 3D print a layer of a pink base and a single arch of white teeth or bleach teeth above. I'm going to leave that just as a click bridge. You could come down here and choose silhouette or whatever bridge you want, but it's not necessary. You just have to tell the software you're going to bridge them. Now, since I'm working off of a trio scan for my lower arch, I'm going to come up here to object type. I'm going to choose digital impression. By doing so, it allows the software to go ahead and know and process the scans slightly different. Antagonist, I'm going to leave as antagonist because this software typically requires an antagonist. And I can leave the rest of these as blank, even though, yes, I do have a denture pre-design, and yes, I have a wax-up pre-preparation as the reference denture. It's going to ask me for the bite rim scan as default in the removables module, which is what I want. So I'm going to leave this as default, none of these selected, and this is my work order set up for this particular application. And click the OK button. Now, once I click the OK button, it saves that into my database under Zest Education. I'm going to double check here that it's set up correctly, 18 through 31, gingiva 18 through 31, everything else looks on point. I'm going to right click this and then left click the import scan functionality. By doing so, I'm going to go back to my folder where I dropped those files. So as shown in other training videos, I have my 3Shape align scan files. It's going to ask me what my open preparation scan here at the top bar, which is going to be my lower jaw. The lower jaw is going to be my mandibular, not denture, but my scan bodies aligned. As you saw in my other video, I thought my Align 2 worked a little bit better, so I'm going to choose that here. Click the Open button, and it gives me a little preview of what that looks like right in here. So my jaw scan or my preparation scan is going to go ahead and be my main scan that I'm going to design on, meaning the scan bodies. Click the Open. Now it's going to ask for the antagonist, so I'm going to bring in the upper denture, click on Open, and then it's going to ask for the wax rim, which is going to be the denture, the 360 scan reference denture, and I click the Open button. It's going to ask for those 3 files and give me a little bit of a preview. I can use my right mouse wheel and kind of view it down in here, but right in here is going to be what my scan should look like. Overall, it looks pretty good. I can right click and hit the Design button. As it opens up dental system software, yours may look a little bit different, either an earlier version or a later version, depending upon when you're watching this video, but most of them will work pretty similarly. It'll open you up here to this page, and it's going to start you here on Refine Upper Jaw Scan. This you can see here. Since I've refined my scans earlier in another technique, it's not going to need to refine that. I click the Next button. Same thing true of the lower, since it's already refined. Should not find any artifacts. However, if I want to refine in this stage, it's totally fine just to go ahead and leave it for this stage. Now at this point, it's going to go ahead and ask me to go ahead and align my occlusal alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my opposing. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on Set with Points and then find 3 points just like so to get an approximate alignment. And then now I can go ahead and bring my wax rim in to align this to the patient's reference denture. There we go. Doesn't need to be perfect here, just needs to be about on point. Here's my occlusal plane. Here's my reference denture, this blue little slider, which is my wax rim. Here's the jaw scan, and then here's the opposing. Overall, that looks pretty good. I click the next button. Now it's going to ask me to trim the upper jaw. I don't typically need to do that here. However, if you want to go ahead and do that, you just click this button and I can go ahead and clean this up so then that way I can get rid of some of these, ancillary data. Don't worry, I'll fix that little spot over there. Come over here, left click to lock it in, and then it will show me what it's going to save. Looks like it automatically saved it, but I'll bring that down a little bit. So the green area is the part that it saves, no problem, that looks pretty good. Hit the preview button before I move to the next page, and this will give me a preview of what my model will look like. Since I designated a digital impression here, this is going to need to build a solid model, so then that way the software cooperates and it works a little bit more streamlined. Overall, that model looks pretty good. I can click the next button. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim the lower. Same thing here. I can click on this button. And what I want to do is just go ahead and capture pretty much the outline of the patient's scan. I prefer to draw this in myself. You can always go ahead and click on this Keep All button, but I find it's much easier to kind of come in here and then just draw this in, lock those together, make sure that it smooths everything out here for you. Overall, that looks pretty good. I can go ahead and click the next button. And since we're working off of a digital scan of the patient's arch, this will apply, gives you a pretty good idea. I could have hit the preview button to double check, but that definitely should work. So you can give a little bit of a check here to make sure that your solid models overall look pretty good. I'm pretty happy with those, and I can overlay my digital scans of what that looks like here. Now at this point, I don't really need to sculpt too much of my upper or opposing arch. Now if I have a little bleb or something that needs to be smoothed out here, like if I don't like how this looks, I can come in here and just lightly smooth that, but you don't have to. If I don't want to undo a change, I just go ahead and undo it. Like maybe I will smooth that out. Oops, I don't like it. Click this undo button and just leave it as default. Hit the next button. Repeat here on the lower. I typically want to leave most of the lower jaw scan here in pretty good condition unless there's something I don't like, a little edge of the soft tissue sticking up, etc. But if it's regarding your scan body or wanting to go ahead and block something out, you can do it at this stage. But if you're using just the housings, I would probably consider waiting for the blockout to a later point. But if I've got a situation where there's an error on the scan, that's where I want to fix it, right in here using the sculpting tool, the Band-Aid tool, or you can add locator attachments using the attachment tool. Since I did it with scan bodies here, I can go ahead and click the next button. Everything here looks good. Defining the occlusal plane is pretty simple. I'm going to left click 3 points in the approximate occlusal plane and then make some minor changes just to match my occlusion. And this one does need to be a little bit closer to what your desired occlusal plane is, so it's still a pretty good idea to go ahead and bring the opposing arch into play. And you can kind of align this if you need to make a correction or where the patient's midline is, etc. This will be the tone that it sets for the rest of the software. Hit the next button. Now I need to tell the software where some of these defining points are. So retromolar pad, 3 spots on either side of the retromolar pad. Then I need to choose a ridge point, which is going to be right down in here, central ridge point. And then left click, same thing, buccal lingual on each side. Then I need to define the approximate canine position here and approximate right in here. Overall, that does look pretty good. Let me hit the next button. If for some reason it gives you an error, that's totally fine. You can always make corrections as time goes on. Moving on to the next step, once I click next, it's now under model analysis. It needs to go ahead and tell me where the edges of this locator fixed prosthesis need to be. And it's helpful to go ahead and toggle this little slider on and off because I want to put the edge of it right to the second molar. But then I don't want to go ahead and have too much of like an undercut underneath the prosthesis. So what I'll typically do is start at the midline right in here, come across just below my scan bodies, and then look at where this is, and then make sure that I cover just enough over the top of where that second molar is, and then turning that back off. Minimizing any sort of undercuts or any excessive tissue lap over the top or the flange area. Now, if I was doing a denture, I would want to go ahead and match the existing contour of this patient's reference denture. But since I'm doing a locator fixed prosthesis, this looks pretty good. Same thing in here, just below the scan bodies, and then sealing it just like you see right in there. And now this will give me a chance just to go ahead and make some minor changes. If I want to go ahead and tweak a little bit, like right in here, maybe I'll leave that as like that, just a little bit of a smoother function. So that way it's not too ragged. Overall, that does look pretty good. And I like it. Hit the next button. Once I go ahead and I lock that in, it will give me a preview of some of the areas of undercuts and things of that nature. And you can see the coloration in this software. Any of the hotter colors means that they're deeper undercuts, and yellows means minor undercuts. So the natural way that this software works is it wants to block out all of the undercuts, so you have a nice path of placement over the top of these objects. Now keep in mind with the scan bodies, when you remove the scan bodies, the locator abutment is going to be just a little bit smaller than the locator fixed housing. And then the locator fixed housing is going to be about 0.5 millimeters smaller than that scan body. So if you design a prosthesis to the scan body, it will make an ideal sized undercut or recess inside of your prosthesis for your doctor to do a chairside pickup of your locator fixed prosthesis. So meaning that we're going to go ahead and set my path of insertion as ideal, approximately right there. Left click the set from view button, and I'm going to look at where my undercuts are. It's okay to have some undercut here. Where I don't want to see undercut is like right in here. I do want to block that out if I want to cover that with my locator fixed prosthesis. But it's natural to see a little bit of undercut around the scan bodies. That's by design. So now when I click on the preview button, it's going to start waxing this up for me. And as I mentioned before, it's very important to understand here too, what is the purpose of the scan body? The scan body creates a 0.5 millimeter space all the way around the locator fixed housing. So if you wax up the exact geometry of the locator scan body, it will give you the perfect sized hole for you to go ahead and do a pickup of your prosthesis. Meaning that if you take a look at my locator fixed prosthesis, this is my goal, to create those holes where that housing just easily just fits underneath this prosthesis. You put a tiny little bit of glue in here, you pick it up chairside, and it fits like a charm. Now, what that means is I don't want to additionally block out the scan body. That's the key, everybody. So the software won't know that it's a scan body. It's just using the removables module. So when I get the block out, I want to block out the areas of tissue undercut, but I don't want to block out around the scan body. So I'll show you how to go ahead and adjust this so that way it's designed properly. So at this point, we're going to click Next. And then we're going to be able to see where our blockout is. If you can't see it fully, bring this little slider all the way across. And everywhere where you see purple, imagine that's a little bit of base plate wax that you're blocking out around the housings or the scan bodies. So to remove that, ideally, I want my blockout to look just like this. Not this, but this. This is the geometry that I want inside of the prosthesis, not this. This will create too much blockout right in here. So meaning I'm going to come in here with my subtract tool, and I'm going to remove all of this blockout just around my locator scan body geometry. And I'll repeat that everywhere else. Because the idea is now, imagine I made a prosthesis on this shape. It's going to be way over blocked out. So I'm going to do this for all of my scan bodies. And I don't want to block out too much below the scan body because I'll explain in just a little bit. If you have significant undercuts in the soft tissue, it is a good idea to go ahead and add some block out. But I'll show you on this particular scan how much blockout I want to use versus how much I want to go ahead and eliminate. So in this particular software, there's no like one-click way of eliminating the undercuts around these locator scan bodies. It's a little bit of a manual process. So pretty straightforward is kind of come in here, do this, clean that out. There we go, and just a little bit right there. Same thing in here. I want to get rid of all of that purple around where the scan bodies are. All right, now we have a choice. Do I want to also leave a giant space right in here? This is a little bit of debate because this is just the space underneath the scan body. I think this is too much blockout right in here, so I'm going to kind of reduce this just a little bit, especially like down in here and then down in here. And that's looking pretty good. I'll grab the smoothing function in the smoothing tool, and I'll show you kind of what I would consider the ideal blockout underneath my scan body. Okay, if I accidentally add a little bit, that's okay. Smooth this out. And that's pretty good about right there. That's what I want to see, is just like that. So meaning this is a little too much. I can decrease this. I'll leave that one. I don't want that undercut there, but that's soft tissue undercuts. Right in here, looks pretty good. Same thing in here. And then using my smoothing tool, I like that. That looks pretty good. Same thing in here. I'll subtract this. Subtract this. So I'm probably not going to go that low on my prosthesis anyways. And then right in here. Now I'm going to leave this purple area here because that's soft tissue undercut. But like right in here, I'm probably not going to go down all that way. But right in here, a little bit of smoothing function. Inspect from the side profile, that looks good. Side profile, that looks good. Side profile, do a little bit of smoothing in here. If I add a little too much, I can always come back up in here and then subtract any extra smoothing algorithm, like right in here and like right in there. Overall, here we go. That's looking just about right. See that undercut shape right in there? Versus here, this is pretty ideal. Maybe a little bit less right there. Perfect. This is what I want to see. A little bit of blockout around here and here. Alternatively, I could have zero blockout that I just manually do, but I find that this is the most efficient way to do it. You get pretty quick at this. I'll go ahead and click Next. Now we're ready to go ahead and jump into the denture's design. And this is the part where I'm going to speed up the video a little bit just after I choose the teeth, because there's a lot of time that goes into the digital denture design. So in this particular case, you want to go ahead and turn on the teeth. I'm going to turn off the opposing, because now I'm going to go ahead and choose a tooth library that's as close to what I see in front of me as possible. So you can use whatever library is available to you. In this particular case, I'm going to stick with the Candelore tooth library. Click Apply, and let's just kind of see what we see here on the screen. And overall, that does look pretty good, actually. I'm pretty darn close to the mesial distal as well as the buccal lingual position of where those teeth are. If I think my teeth need to be a little bit more defined, like in the posterior, no problem. I'll click Apply, change just the posterior arch, those the tooth cards in the posterior, and you'll see it really kind of jumps up a little bit. It became much wider. Now, I don't think I necessarily need to do that. I'm going to jump back to the 34 mold because I think it'll fit on this particular patient's arch better. And like I mentioned, this is the part where you can spend a lot of time. I'm not going to. I'm just going to choose this one as a pretty good ideal, moving this arch around, just kind of doing one of these things and just saying, yeah, how's these teeth look like on the mesial distal? I can turn this little device on and off just to be able to see it better. But overall, I think I'm pretty close actually to what those teeth here look like. Now, importantly, this is also assuming that the patient's pretty happy with their reference denture. And this is your opportunity too to make those changes, either small or big. So case in point in my practice, if I have a patient that's like, gosh, I really like my temporary denture, but doctor, I wish it fit better. And you know what? While you're at it, could you just make them like a little bit brighter? Said by 90% of my patients in my practice, then the reference denture technique just really works. Now, if the patient says to me, doc, I really don't like these teeth, the shape is wrong, I want to do something different, it may be a good idea to go to a wax up before doing the stage. Tit for tat, we can go ahead and get to this point either with a reference denture 360 scan of the wax up or on the patient's reference denture. But we want to have something to give us a guide, or else we're just kind of flying blind. Now, I could just ignore the lower completely and just have the opposing arch, meaning the upper, and then match the teeth to it. That gets you pretty close too. So there's lots of different ways how you can go ahead and approach the software application for Locator and Locator Fixed. Now taking a look here at this, I can see across the board this is looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with those teeth, but I do want to change some of the posterior areas back here. So you can kind of like grab the second tool, which is kind of like your arch setup tool, and I can left click just the posterior teeth, or I can move the arches by grabbing the premolars and then rocking them in this way. And it makes it pretty easy. If I have an asymmetrical design, no big deal. I can always go ahead and then move those things around, or I can move those canines in a little bit and just kind of shift the arch around as I do that. Coming back to this mode, it'll give me a chance to go ahead and move the teeth as an arch. I can also rock and rotate the entire arch. When I click here and then get to this point, I can also start moving individual teeth around, moving just the little segment up and down. And you'll still feel pretty good about what this is starting to look like. Same thing in here. Now, as I get to this point and I want to go ahead and start moving some arches around, in this particular case, if I choose my third button, which is going to be my symmetrical design right in here, so it allows me to select multiple teeth, I can tip my teeth in and out by doing so, and then plus it's on an arch, so it allows me to go ahead and move these around. I can move just the laterals in. And I like to leave the symmetrical design turned on just until I get further along in the process. Overall, that looks pretty good. Turn off symmetrical design now, just because I'm a little bit asymmetrical right in here. And then right in here, that looks good. Okay, now at this point, I'm getting pretty close. I can move individual teeth around using this button. So if I have a little bit of asymmetry, like is shown here on this patient, no big deal. I can use my little sliders. The red orb rotates in that kind of 360. The green orb will kind of shrink it in and out for this particular tooth library. And I can also move it up and down, or I can shrink it up and down by using my green versus red versus yellow orbs. The yellow is a little bit more of like a tangential, more like a push and pull. But the nice thing about the Candelora library is I have full function to go ahead and do some pretty unique things here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and line these things up approximately to where the arch is, give a little bit of that asymmetry right here, and then shown right in here, I can click that, rock it just a little bit this way, bring it across here, and then get this a little bit of push and pull, maybe shrink it just a little bit and tilt that way, and then bring it out just a touch. That's great. And then same thing right in here, I'm gonna rock these across. And this patient does have it like having a little bit of asymmetry in the anterior. And now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start thinking about my arches here in the posterior. So I'm going to bring that canine into that position, give or take. And I can rock that one canine out just a little tiny bit, just moving my camera angle around. And then it's a little bit squished, so I'm going to bring that guy in, shrink that one just a little bit. And then that looks good. Bring this one out just a little tiny bit. There you go. And this is really the artistry side of things of what you can do. Notice here that I've got a little bit of a bigger tooth. Now, if I want to shrink something, I'll explain in just a little bit, but let me go ahead and reline these up because I find it very easy just to move individual teeth, just like so. And then just like so, I'm going to bring them out to kind of where that denture position is, give or take. Now, once I get into that approximate position, I turn that toggle on and off, and it'll give me a preview of where that prosthesis is. And this will allow me to start locking things into place. You can see here I've got a lot of overlap on that particular tooth. So maybe what I need to do is go ahead and bring it, or maybe just shrink it a little bit in this orientation, shrink that a little bit that way. So then that way it doesn't throw off my software. Okay, maybe same thing in here, getting close. So what I can also grab is this little individual morphing tool, which will allow me to kind of grab the different parts of it, where you can see here if I grab the yellow part, it does a little bit of a bigger change than if I grab maybe like this little incisal edge part, shrink this down to match exactly the contours of this reference denture. And then same thing in here. Maybe I'll bring that across. Maybe I'm a little bit too puffy right in here. Bring that back, bring that forward, bring this out a little bit, like so. And I'm aligning these colored areas together. And this will give me a preview of where my patient's original reference denture is and where that prosthesis is going to go. Also, using your noggin a little bit here, because I know this is going to be a fixed prosthesis, I need to be cognizant of things like AP spread, etc., etc. But overall, that does look pretty good. So I usually do that in the anterior, and then when I get to the posterior, it becomes pretty simple. You can go ahead and you stay on this morphing tool, but then I right-click the tooth. Oh, maybe I'll have to go to that one. Right-click, and then say bring to mesial contact, which will bring it perfectly adapted to that. Right-click, bring to mesial contact. Right-click, bring to mesial contact, and I can kind of do a little bit of one of these, no problem. Bring to mesial contact, bring to mesial contact. Overall, that looks pretty good. And then same thing over here. This may push it distally. There we go. Bring to mesial contact, bring to mesial contact, and bring to mesial contact. That looks fantastic. All right, so I'm getting pretty close, but I can tell that I've got some of the posterior teeth sticking through. So you're going to go ahead and bring this slider across right in here, which is going to give me my occlusion. And you can see here that kind of the darker colors means that I've got heavy occlusion. So I can kind of come in here, drop this down a little bit, drop that down a little bit, drop that down, just to kind of get in the ballpark. I can do this also at a later time, but I like to do it here because it gets me really close to where it needs to be. Okay, same thing in here. And then just these big teeth, I can bring that cusp up a little bit to get proper contact. And then right in here, I'm a little heavy. That's going to be a little bit nicer right in there. And then same thing, grabbing on the cusp tips. There we go. All right, so I at least kind of get relatively even. Maybe my little slider's a little too big, and I'll bring that little edge down just a little bit. And then same thing, that ridge. And you can spend a fair amount of time here, but just for expediency's sake, I'm going to go ahead and leave that as is. Bring that a little bit closer there, but overall that's looking pretty good. Bring that down just a little bit, and bring that down just a little bit. Okay. So now for the most part, I'm pretty darn close, and I'm going to accept that by clicking the next button. So once I click next, it's going to go ahead and tell me I've got a gingival lines violation for tooth number 18 and 21. Do you want to ignore the problem and continue? Let's click no. Let me look at it. Oh, yep, there it is right in there. No problem. Grab my little sculpting tool, and I can kind of create a little bit of a space because you can tell it's a little bit tight right back in there. That's okay. I can come and do that, fix it a little bit later. But in this particular example, let me go ahead and see if I can fix some of this now. And then we'll adjust it later when I have the proper smoothing tools to do so. Now I'm going to undo that. There we go. And I'll just leave it as is, and we're going to ignore the problem and fix it later. Okay, so now I'm going to get to the denture base design. So typically once you outline the gingiva right in here, no problem. Base thickness 2.5 millimeters. Typically I'm going to do this intense characterization, and you can have some of these fun features right in here. No relief for locator fixed. Base thickness is at least 2.5 millimeters, and if you want drill compensation, you can do that. But I'm going to click the preview button to see what it looks like. Okay, so now once it started to create a little of the gingiva, I'm getting pretty close here. Obviously, I've got some work to do in the posterior, but overall it's looking pretty good. Click the next button. So the software is going to take you through making connectors first. So I'm going to click on the preview button, see what the software defaults and gives me. Very good. So now everything is joined together as a single arch piece, and it's looking really good. That's what I want to see here. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the next button. And now I have a sculpt anatomy phase. This will give me a little bit more control than the denture tooth selection phase. So, I kind of skipped, that opposing arch, and I can see here I've got my arch and lingualized occlusion, but I've got some areas where I need to do some adjustments posteriorly because that scan body's in the way. No big deal. I can make that at this particular stage. So what helps is I kind of come in here, I can grab that with the morphing tool, but I really find it very easy just to use the spray can tool and just turn up my smooth function, and I just kind of smooth that away until I lose some of that red. Starts to go away. Let me turn up my intensity. I like the smooth function. I find it works the best to eliminate some of those areas of interferences. Good, we're getting closer. I'll use the little subtract tool here at the end just to turn it all in good shape. Good. Okay, now taking a look here at that number 20 position, because it's usually like the premolars and the molar. Now, a lot of times the premolar I can kind of grab with this tool. So let me do that with this tool right in here. You just bring it up just like so. Give me a little bit of a space that way. And I'll turn on my gingiva to make sure I'm not throwing off my gingiva. Overall, that looks pretty good. There we go. And then same thing over in here, just bring that up because you got a pretty tall tooth right there. Okay, and then maybe I'll just kind of like adjust that. Overall, that's looking pretty good. Okay, I can check my occlusion now at this point and just verify that occlusion doesn't look too bad. And then you alternatively can go ahead and turn on your contacts and do a little bit of a smooth. One thing that's great about the 3Shape software is you click on the little joystick icon here at the end. And if I want a 0.35 millimeter gap, great. Or I can just do 0, hit the play button, and then it will take away all those contacts for me. And that way it's super even all the way across. There you go. Now I've got basically a 0, meaning everything is touching. But I'm like, oops, I don't have a little edge touching right in here. No problem. I'm going to give my patient a little bit of a better bite right in here. Almost. A little too much. So I want to keep this as lingualized occlusion. That's pretty good. And overall, then we're looking pretty good. If I want to add a little bit of a sculpt, and I know it's not the best way to do it with this tool, but that's okay, just because I find it really easy to use. There we go. And then grab one more little thing. There, that should fix it. Oop, too much. Let me go back to my joystick. 0. Make sure everything's even now. There we go. Okay. I could spend more time on the occlusion, but this is just, again, a training video. I'm going to go ahead and click the next button because now we're ready to go ahead and sculpt the denture base. This was the part that may take a little bit more time just because I find it very easy to kind of come in here with this little smoothing tool and then just start kind of bringing this across, smoothing this down and making sure that I'm nice and smooth. The computer I'm using just lags a little tiny bit. That's okay. I'm going to keep some of that nice characterization. I'll kind of bring in this posterior back here because that's a little silly looking. And then right in here, I'm going to make this just a little bit thicker because I've got a fixed prosthesis now. Thicken up that lingual wall. Okay, now taking a look at my prosthesis overall, looking pretty good. I could spend a lot more time doing on this. Again, give me some grace here. I'm a dentist, not a technician, so there's definitely some areas where you would find a big improvement as a technician. So I'm going to get as close as possible here. And then same thing in here, just kind of bring this up, thicken that up just a little bit because I'm going to have a thin area of the prosthesis. That's kind of near where that locator housing needs to go. And then we'll smooth that out. Okay, now I can go ahead and do a little bit of festooning here. I grab that sculpt tool right in here. And then this is the sculpt tool that I really like to use for festooning. I could have left it as default. However, in this particular example, I'll show you how I festoon and add some of my sluices here. And then same thing in here. Depending upon your type of manufacturing, some of you will 3D print this and then add some gingival composite after. That's totally fine. I'll bring my portions down just a little bit where the interdental papilla are, and then kind of build out that festoon area a little bit too much, but maybe a little bit right there. Interproximally, have them dive in just a little bit, make my part smaller here. And then right in here, I'll bring that in. And then same thing here, bring that down. And then I alternate between that and my smoothing tool just a little bit, just to kind of dab it with a little smooth. Right at the end, because I'm a little bit thick. You can see here for the most part, that looks pretty good. All right. Now, for the most part, that prosthesis does look pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit the next button and see what the software says. Right, so it's accepted my gingival design, because what I've got right now is we're going to hide this underneath here. You see here I got my locator scan bodies underneath my gingival design component right in here, adding a little bit of thickness right in here just for the thickness of the prosthesis around that scan body. And then I can kind of get an idea of the shape of this, which you don't really see much there, but now it's looking pretty good. For overall, maybe there's some things I'd want to change, but it's looking pretty good. Now my coupling mechanism, I want to go ahead and typically leave that as default. So let's hit the preview button, see what happens. Sometimes we need to change that coupling angle based upon how it's going to cut out. So what the coupling angle is going to go ahead and do is my ultimate goal is I want to make a prosthesis that looks like this. Fits on my model, looks great. But this procedure is going to give you two independent layers of the one pink and then the one white. So the coupling angle is going to be how these two parts fit together. Is there a path of insertion of these teeth into the pink base? So when we set our coupling angle, it's important to understand that changing some of those parameters will give you a better fit, a little bit easier to work with as well. So for the most part, it's accepted my coupling angle. I can click the next button. And now it's going to give me that same procedure where I have my arch assembly type and my minimum thickness under my teeth and then drilling compensation. So I'm going to leave this on for a milling, but since I'm 3D printing, I'm turning that off. I'm going to click the preview button, and now it's going to go ahead and give me an idea of what the shape of those are going to come out looking like. Once you go ahead and see an output, 3Shape will give you a preview of what these two layers are going to look like. I can turn these on and off. And this is the best part right here, where I can kind of start to see all this come together now. As it starts to really come together, I've got a pretty good idea of the shape of the tooth arch and the gingiva underneath. And overall, I'm pretty happy with that. You can see here there's a little bit of undercut right in here, but I can always take a burr to this, adjust it later since I'm doing a 3D print. Or if I'm going to do zirconia, I want to go ahead and smooth this off in the software before I send it to the milling machine. But since this is a two-piece, I'm not going to send this for zirconia. This is really ideal for doing a milled PMMA with a pink milled base or a 3D printed pink base, all PMMA prosthesis. So it's pretty easy to go ahead and see that. My output here looks pretty good. I'm going to click the next button. And I could go ahead and build a positioning guide, click the preview button, but this is really optional. So now I've got my positioning guide in place, which is a pretty cool tool. So basically, if I'm unsure of where my teeth go on the denture, I can always go ahead and make this and print that, so then that way it's an easy carrier for me to go ahead and process the teeth to the denture. It's default as part of this workflow, so I'm just going to accept it, but I don't need to work with it. What I really care about is these two files right here when they get exported from the software. Click the next button. I'm getting pretty close, so the anticipation is building in my software that I can now start to see the outputted files saying, yes, we've been able to successfully make your prosthesis. Woohoo! So now at this point, I can go ahead and click the close button, exit out of my 3Shape dental design software back into my dental manager, which allows me to go ahead and prepare those files for either 3D printing or milling. Now right in here, I've got my design files. You can see here everything has now been outputted. I can go ahead and right click, hit the advanced and explore the CAM folder, which is where I'll find my STL files. And this is pretty cool too, because I've got my base. Here's my teeth, I should say. Then here is my base. And then a monoblock version of this. If I wanted to go ahead and print it, or if this is one way to do it in zirconia as well. As mentioned, we would maybe need to smooth this off. You can do that in the green state too in zirconia, so I wouldn't get too wrapped up around it, but the idea is that I'd want to come back into a modeling software and smooth that off so there's no undercuts for zirconia. But I can go ahead and see also my transfer template. And I can bring those into Mesh Mixer and take a look at them as well. So right in here, I'll bring up my Mesh Mixer software. And since these are used with a specific manufacturing process, they may not be in the correct orientation. So I'll bring them both in. Oh, they are, great. So this is using the Nextent manufacturing process. I can see my two layers here in Mesh Mixer. And I'll bring that across like that. So you can see, here is my teeth. And then my base. And then also I can bring in my template. And you'll see it's at that correct orientation if I really wanted to print that. Or you can even see your monoblock, which is just the solid version of that, in case I wanted to go ahead and print in monolithic and then cut back a little bit and put some pink on there as well. I hope this training video has been helpful for you, because now with the 3Shape basic design software, I've gone ahead and I made a separate printable or millable tooth arch and denture base arch utilizing the dental system software. I can bring that over to my 3D printers, I can take it to my milling machine, or I can simply go ahead and send this to a dental laboratory. Again, some of you may find specific workflows that work best within your version of 3Shape dental system software. And you all, like I said a moment ago too, I'm a dentist. Please don't judge me too much on the laboratory design here. I encourage all of my laboratory technician friends to really shine, put your artistic touch on this as well. But I was able to go ahead and show you just a pretty basic workflow with the 3Shape dental system software for LOCATOR FIXED. My name is Dr. Michael Shear. Make sure you check out some of my other videos here at YouTube or any other educational resources. Thank you.